How's it going, everybody? So, you've probably seen a deck of cards like this before, but I want to show you something rather unique. This is a deck of playing cards by Sip to Suit is the name of the company. They were on Kickstarter, and I saw them. I love just looking through Kickstarter to see if there's any neat stuff happening in the coffee industry. And I came across these, and I thought it was such a cool idea that this is a deck of cards that revolves around different brewing methods and things like that. So let me show you. Basically, they have different cards for either drink formulas. They have some for educational coffee tips and brewing fundamentals. They also have method cards with brew parameters. And so there's a bunch of different stuff like that. Now, I actually want to see how accurate the way that I prepare some of my coffee drinks, how they line up with this. Now, I've never opened it. It's totally sealed, so I'm really interested in getting in because I've seen just a couple teasers, but I haven't really seen anything official when it comes to the whole deck. So let's open them up and take a quick look. All right. I really like the backs of these cards. You've got tamps, and you've got mugs, you've got a mocha pot, and you've got a bunch of different things that kind of represent the coffee industry. So I think this is a really good start, that's for sure. So this is really neat. There's a little description about like, hey, there are lots of opinions when it comes to temperatures or different, parameters. And so they talk about like, hey, these are what are considered most common. And so just kind of as a little precursor. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, so we got kind of like a marker card, sort of a reference card, like, hey, listen, this isn't the official way to, like the only way to prepare these types of coffees, but this is kind of what we've gathered. And this is what has been recommended by a majority. Okay, we got the Joker drinking a iced latte, I would imagine. Okay, so we're off to an interesting start. And this is a very fresh take. I'm sorry if it's a little bit jumbled, but the aces, so far, from what I can tell, they represent different roasts. So like you've got your dark is your spades, you've got medium dark is your hearts, and then you've got medium is your clubs. I'm assuming diamonds are light, but yeah, sure enough, diamonds are light. So that's pretty neat, and describing the different flavor profiles you're probably going to get from each roast. Huh, this is super cool. Okay, what I'm gonna do, because I'm not gonna go through every single card one by one. That'd be kind of a long and sort of tedious video. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through these, and I'm gonna see if there's any commonalities between the suits, or maybe like the royal cards, the face cards, or the number cards. I'm gonna sort through these really quick and kind of figure it out. If there's anything fun though, I'll obviously interject, but all right, here I go. Okay, so there is a commonality between all of the spade number cards from 2 to 10. So it looks like they're all manual brewing methods. So like pour overs and Vietnamese coffee, AeroPress, French press, the vacuum pot, which I've heard is a siphon. But yeah, so all of these are kind of more manual brewing methods. So this isn't really espresso as much. There is the manual lever press. So that would be like the flare and things like that, where you just kind of use your own kind of physical force to get the 9 bars. But yeah, all of these look like they are manual brewing methods. So you've got your cone method, you've got the Chemex, you've got the AeroPress, French press. So that's pretty neat. Okay, so we're already sensing a pattern. I'm glad that there's a method to the madness instead of just, oh, there's a couple fun facts here, there's a couple brew methods there, yada yada. It looks like so far there's a lot of intentionality. Now, hearts are a different subject because these are all drink formulas, not as much brew methods, and they seem to, most of them have espresso in them, but not all of them. But the commonality is that these are not milk-based drinks. You've got like a ginger citrus cold brew recipe, but you also have an affogato. So neither of these, the only similarity between the two that I can tell is that they don't specifically have steamed milk in them. Same thing with the Vietnamese coffee has sweetened condensed milk. The Americano uses water, not milk. The Cubano, macchiato. So yeah, all of these seem to be drinks that are there's only one. That's kind of interesting. There's only one that is not an espresso drink. It's a cold brew. But all of them do not have steamed milk involved. They have other things incorporated. Okay, so the clubs are interesting because most of it is either espresso or cold brew as far as brewing methods. So, or something similar to cold brew. So like you've got e-brick, which is kind of a concentrate. You've got the mocha pot, and you've got a percolator, but then you have like your espresso machine, and then you've got your filter-in cold brew. You've got your OXO cold brew coffee maker. So like, it seems like the black cards are brew methods, and then the red cards are drink formulas. So the way that you would prepare these drinks. That's actually pretty clever too. I like that, the black and red cards also have similarities between their colors, not just their suits. Okay, and now I did kind of see this coming. Diamonds look like they are mostly steamed milk beverages. So you've got like a cafe au lait, cafe con leche, latte, flat white, espressino. Oh, that's kind of a fun way of... isn't that technically a cortado? No, they're different. Okay, hey, let's get educated. So like, this is the kind of the point. So I've never really heard of an espressino. So but by the first impressions, it looked like it was a cortado, but it's not. Okay, so let's find out. Okay, so in an espressino, trying to make it sound all fancy by rolling the R's. It looks like you have 3 ounces instead of 4. You use cocoa powder, and there isn't the same level of microfoam. You do steamed milk, but apparently like the microfoam isn't as high a priority as it is on the cortado. Oh, interesting. They even tell you what degree the steamed milk should be. So the steamed milk is hotter on the espressino than on the cortado, where they recommend about 49 degrees Celsius or 120 degrees. In the espressino, they go for 60 degrees Celsius or 140, so like an extra 20 degrees hotter. And I don't know why that is. Now, that would naturally create less of a microfoam, but I wonder what that does as far as, how that enhances or complements maybe the chocolate flavor from the cocoa powder. But that's actually a really neat fact. Look at that. We're learning from the cards already. I actually am really excited because I've never heard of a espressino before, but maybe it's because it's more common in other countries. So yeah, it looks like everything here is, just to double check, espresso and milk in some fashion. Steamed milk one way or the other, whether it's with microfoam or not. So that's really neat. I love the harmony already that I'm seeing from all these cards. Okay, now as you may have noticed, I've saved the face cards for last. Oh, these are really cool looking though. Everyone has this unique art to it that's just really, there's obviously going to be similarities when it comes to the jacks and the queens, but they each have their own little flair to them. Oh yeah, this is very, very cool. Now, one thing that is taking me a little longer to figure out is the exact differences between each one, except for the hearts. The hearts are the most obvious because they are all flavor profiles traditionally found in different regions. And then the top coffee producers in each of these places. Like, so the top coffee producers, for instance, in Asia, are Vietnam, Indonesia, India, China, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, Thailand, Laos, and the Philippines. These are actually really neat things to know. I love learning about coffee. Whatever it is, if it's preparation methods or its origins and regions, varieties, I love all of it. So I'm actually really enjoying this. But I'm definitely seeing a very cohesive amount of information from the hearts. I'm going to sort through the diamonds, spades, and clubs to kind of see if I can get something that kind of ties them all together. Okay, I think I'm getting it together. I'm going to start with clubs. Clubs looks like it's all about the freshness of the coffee beans. So like, for instance, the three major topics in clubs for Jack, Queen, and King are the bean freshness, the bloom, and the extraction. Now, all of those kind of do have to do with the freshness of the coffee. But the weird thing is, in diamonds, one of the first things is bean storage. So I feel like bean storage would have been nice to have with the bean freshness, but maybe they wanted to divvy it up. But it seems like that's kind of a little, just in my opinion, a little more cohesive. Now, okay, let's keep looking. Okay, the diamonds look very informative along the side of just getting started with coffee, because it talks about your must-haves. I like the king, actually. The king's kind of cool. There's must-haves, which is like some specialty coffee, whole beans, and then a grinder. And then your nice-to-haves are on the bottom. So a digital scale and a kettle with temperature control, preferably gooseneck. Spades are also pretty cohesive now that I'm looking at it. You've got brew ratios, you've got grind sizes, and water temperature. Those are all that you could basically use these as like a guide for your morning cup of coffee, which is kind of cool. And it talks about why you have a certain ratio. It talks about why you have a certain degree of water so that you don't, create bitter or acidic flavors because you over or under extracted the coffee because there wasn't enough heat or too much heat, just messing around with the beans. Okay, yeah, so all of these kind of have a sweet spot. The brew ratios, the grind size, and the water temperature, they all have a sweet spot that if you go too much water, then it'll be under extracted. If you have too little water, it'll be too thick, too bitter. With grind size, too coarse, you're gonna get weak coffee. With too fine, you're gonna get bitter, nasty coffee. With water temperature, too hot, you're gonna just over extract. Too cold, under extract. So spades are making way more sense now. I would say where it gets a little bit muddy, I'm being really particular. I'm not trying to like say that I'm not trying to find the flaws in these. I'm just saying personally, where it gets a little bit less cohesive for me personally is in the clubs and the diamonds. The subjects are the bean freshness, the bloom, and the extraction 101 in clubs. And then you've got bean storage, good to knows, which are just like 1 gram is 1 milliliter, 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. So like just different ratios and sizes when it comes to weights and conversions and things like that. And then the king is just called a better brew. So like things that are must-have, things that are nice to have. So if you guys see a commonality between the clubs and diamonds with each other that maybe I'm not seeing, please let me know. I mean, it's all in the same ballpark because it's all about coffee, but perhaps there's just a little more to it than I'm aware of personally, or that I'm noticing. But my gosh, these are so cool. I love the artwork, I love the design, I love the style. I gotta be honest with you, it is very unlikely that I'm gonna be playing cards with these cards anytime soon. Like maybe with my brother, but they're gonna be for show for most of for the most part. I'm pretty convinced because I know some people, they shuffle hard and or they fool around. I know some cheaters. I have some friends of mine who cheat at cards. Like they'll mess with the corners to try to like find certain cards they're looking for, all that junk, and that is messed up. In my opinion, that's a little messed up. But yeah, I absolutely love these, and I'm looking forward to getting to see in more detail all of the different recommendations and things. Actually, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go over to the Brew Methods, but I wanna see how I prepare some of these, what some of the commonalities are between them. All right, so let's do All right, let's start with the Chemex. This is a classic. Let's see here. So they say 1 to 17. I typically do 1 to 16. And they do, 18 grams then 300 milliliters of water. I typically do 30 grams and 480 because I'm usually splitting a Chemex. That's just how I end up using it because of just the size of the vessel and the size of the paper filter. If I'm making a smaller cup of coffee, I'm usually using my V60. Let's continue. Oh, cool. They actually have a couple, so you can do 1 to 15, 1 to 16, or 1 to 17, depending on the level of strength or how, mild you want the coffee. So that's kind of a neat thing to factor in. They have a whole grid. I love these things. I really like this a lot. So they say medium coarse or medium, but they say the ideal is medium coarse, and I totally agree with that. I actually do a similar coarseness to a French press with my Chemex, but that's just me. Water temperature, they say 200 degrees. I do 200 degrees for my water temperature as well, depending on the age of the beans. Now, this is an interesting kind of timeline. They have a kind of a bar that specifically talks about the timeline of preparing, and they say that you start off with your bloom naturally, wait until 30, you add all of the water, and then they add all the water in at 1 minute? Or is that 30 seconds? Okay, no, at the end of 30 seconds, you add all the water. Okay, that makes more sense. And then they say that your brew time should be done between 3 minutes and 30 seconds or 5 minutes. 5 minutes would be a long old time for just 18 grams and 300 mils. That would, to me, that would be a little over. But all things considering, I'd be willing to try this ratio out because I don't think I've ever used 18 grams before. I've always used 30 for my Chemex, so I'd be very willing to give this a shot. Okay, now I want to see what they do for French press. Let's take a look. Okay. So they do a 1 to 15. I do 1 to 16, but again, there's a lot of room for just fooling around with those ratios. And they say coarse. I usually do medium coarse, but I don't know. I haven't had any trouble. The thing is, I thought that I'd have to go way more coarse with my French press than I normally do, and so I don't know. I just never changed it because I liked it, and so I figured it seems like a Chemex and a French press. There should be a distinction between the two. Maybe I will go up a little higher in my grind size, but I've really liked my French presses. But anyway. They say 200 degrees. Again, I do 200 degrees. And then, so they do a bloom, then wait. And then you stir and add all the water. And then your max is 4 minutes. Okay, I get that. I really do. And there's a lot of people who prepare it that way because even on the instructional guides, they'll tell you to make it that way. I use a method that's kind of similar to, there's an AeroPress association. And then there's also James Hoffman, who've talked about kind of stirring and then let it sit for a while so that you can let more sediment fall to the bottom. And that's what I do, and I really enjoy it. But this is definitely not an invalid brewing method. Because it takes double the time. It is a longer preparation time or a longer time before you actually start drinking your coffee. So I'd be willing to try this. I'd be willing to try this method out and see if I like it any better. But I love this. I'm gonna definitely get into more of these and kind of look at more of the ratios and stuff like that. But I just wanted to give you guys a little first-hand experience as far as my first impressions, and I really like them. I say, if you're really into coffee and you like kind of coffee accessories, things like that, these are a really neat addition, I would say, to your random coffee accessories. So yeah, there it is. Let me know if there's any other fun kind of coffee gadgets or coffee accessories that you think I'd be interested in looking at. I'm always looking for new stuff like that. But wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're drinking great coffee, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.